Mix them, it's fine. 2 multi-grade oils, same shelf, same standard. Pour it in, drive it, forget about it, and I'll see you at your next service. That's a dealership service director with 22 years on the drive, saying it to a customer's face without blinking. You've just created a fluid that isn't certified for anything. You don't know its high temperature film thickness, and neither does the engineer who calibrated that engine. That's a tribologist, a lubrication scientist, lab coat, viscometer, published papers. Saying the flat opposite, both men are right. That's what makes this confusing. And the gap between those two sentences is exactly where your engine lives. So let's go into that gap properly, not with opinions, with the actual numbers on the actual bottles, the actual arithmetic of what happens when 2 oils meet in your sump, and an honest answer at the end that has a yes in it and a no in it, and tells you precisely which one applies to you. Here's the thing about that argument. It's the part almost nobody says out loud. The service director is answering the question, will this hurt anything today? The tribologist is answering the question, is this fluid a known quantity? Those are different questions. They just sound like the same question when you're standing in a parking lot holding a jug of the wrong oil. Now listen, before any of this makes sense, you need to know what those numbers on the bottle actually are, because most people read them completely backwards. Take 0W-20. That's not one number split by a dash. That's 2 separate tests, run at 2 separate temperatures, describing 2 separate behaviors. The number in front of the W is a cold flow rating. W is for winter. A 0W has to keep pumping at a lower temperature than a 5W does, which is why 0W oils tend to show up in engines with tight variable valve timing hardware and start-stop systems that need pressure immediately on a cold morning. The number after the dash is the one that matters for today's question. That's the hot rating, and it's governed by a standard called SAE J300, which is the specification that defines what a grade even is. J300 sets bands. To be called a 20 grade, an oil has to have a kinematic viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius, somewhere between roughly 6.9 and 9.3 centistokes. To be called a 30 grade, that same measurement has to land from 9.3 up to just under 12.5 centistokes. Kinematic viscosity, big phrase, simple idea. It's just how fast the oil wants to flow under its own weight at a given temperature. Thicker oil, higher number. And here's the consequence that matters to you. That number determines how thick the film of oil is between your bearing and your crankshaft when everything's hot and loaded. Thicker film means more separation. It also means more drag. Every engineer designing an engine is picking a point on that trade-off, and they're picking it on purpose. So a real 0W-20 might measure around 8.6 centistokes at 100 Celsius. A real 5W-30 might measure around 10.9. Hold those two numbers, because we're about to do the thing everyone argues about and nobody actually calculates. But wait, there's a second number that almost never gets discussed on YouTube, and it's arguably more important than the first. It's called HTHS, high temperature, high shear viscosity, measured at 150 degrees Celsius and reported in millipascal seconds. That's the test that simulates oil getting squeezed and sheared inside a hot bearing at speed. Under J300, a 20 grade generally needs at least 2.6 millipascal seconds. A 30 grade generally needs at least 2.9. Remember that gap. 2.6 versus 2.9. It's going to matter in about 90 seconds, and it's the single detail that explains why the tribologist won't just say, it's fine. Okay, the math. Out loud. You've got a 5-quart sump. You pour in 2.5 quarts of 0W-20 at 8.6 centistokes and 2.5 quarts of 5W-30 at 10.9 centistokes. Add them, 8.6 plus 10.9 is 19.5. Divide by 2, 9.75. Call it 9.7 centistokes because real-world viscosity blending isn't perfectly linear. The industry uses a logarithmic blending method, ASTM D7152, and the true result usually lands a hair below the straight average. So somewhere right around 9.7. Now look at what you just built. 9.7 centistokes is above the 9.3 ceiling for a 20 grade, so it isn't a 20 anymore. It's inside the 30 grade band on kinematic viscosity. But its HTHS is sitting somewhere near 2.75 millipascal seconds, blended down from a 2.9 by that 2.6, which means it falls short of what a 30 grade requires. Read that again. On one test, it's a 30. On the other test, it's not. So it's neither. It's a real, functioning, perfectly stable lubricant that satisfies no grade in the standard. This is the paint analogy, and I think it's the cleanest way to understand the whole issue. Pour half a can of navy and half a can of slate gray into a bucket and stir. You get a color. A genuine, real, usable color. It'll cover a wall. It won't separate, it won't curdle, it won't go chunky. But it is not on the chart. There's no code for it. Nobody made a swatch of it. If you run out halfway through the second wall, you cannot go buy more of it because it doesn't exist as a product. That's your sump. You've made a real oil that is not a licensed grade. It works. It's just undefined. And the real-world consequence of undefined isn't drama. It's that nobody has run a single durability test on the exact fluid now circulating through your engine. Not the oil company, not the automaker, nobody. Quick reality check before we go further, because I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. You've been mixing oils for 15 years and nothing bad has ever happened. I believe you. Keep listening, because that's actually consistent with everything I'm about to say. So what genuinely happens in there? Let's be specific, and let's be honest, because the honest version is less scary and more useful than either extreme. First, film thickness changes slightly. Your bearings and cam lobes are riding on a wedge of pressurized oil a few microns thick. A slightly thicker blend tends to produce a slightly thicker film at high temperature. Directionally, that's not a bad thing for wear protection. Evidence suggests a marginally thicker film can reduce metal-to-metal contact under heavy load, which is exactly why some people argue mixing up is harmless or even beneficial. In my assessment, on that narrow point, they've got a case. Second, fuel economy may shift a little. Thicker oil means more internal drag, which means the engine spends slightly more energy pumping and shearing its own lubricant. Published viscosity versus economy work generally puts the difference between a 20 grade and a 30 grade in the range of 1% or 2%. On a partial blend, you're talking about a fraction of that. You will almost certainly never see it on your dashboard readout. It's real, it's just small. Third, and this is the one the tribologist actually cares about, orifice flow rate. This is where the concrete analogy earns its keep. Imagine two batches of concrete mixed to slightly different consistencies. Both are concrete, both cure hard. But if you're pumping them through a narrow hose to a precise place at a precise rate, the wetter batch and the stiffer batch behave differently coming out the nozzle. Same material category, different flow behavior through a restriction. Your engine is full of restrictions, and some of them are shockingly small. Variable valve timing systems use oil as hydraulic fluid, routed through control solenoids and passages measured in fractions of a millimeter. Those passages are calibrated around the flow rate of a specific viscosity, so cam phaser response can change. The cam phaser is the device that rotates your camshaft relative to the crankshaft to alter valve timing on the fly. It's hydraulic, it's fast, it's commanded dozens of times a minute. Feed it oil that flows slightly differently than the calibration assumed, and the phaser may reach its commanded position slightly slower or overshoot slightly. In most cases, the closed loop control simply corrects for it, and you notice nothing at all. In some cases, on some engines, you may get a brief cold start rattle or a stored timing correlation code. Why does that matter to you? Because a timing correlation code sends people to a shop believing they need a timing chain. That's a four-figure conversation over what may be a viscosity issue. The tolerance is narrower on a few specific setups, and I want to name them rather than being vague. Engines with oil pressure-driven start-stop systems, where the accumulator has to refill and repressurize the moment you lift off the brake. Hybrid powertrains, where the engine cycles on and off constantly and never settles into a steady thermal state. Some modern turbocharged 4s with very tight oil control orifices feeding the phasers and the turbo bearing. On those, the calibration window around viscosity is simply tighter than it is on a naturally aspirated engine from 2009. Now let's demolish some myths, because there's a lot of nonsense attached to this question and it deserves to be cleared out. The oils will not gel, they will not curdle, they will not turn to sludge in your pan. Any oil sold with an API SP license, that's the current American Petroleum Institute service category, the starburst and the donut on the bottle, has to demonstrate compatibility with other licensed oils. Base stock compatibility is a requirement, not a hope. Group 3 synthetics, Group 4 PAOs, Group 5 esters, the mineral oils underneath conventional products, they're all miscible with each other, and the additive packages are chemically related. The detergents, the dispersants, the anti-wear chemistry built around zinc dialkyl dithiophosphate, the viscosity index improvers that make an oil multigrade in the first place, those come from a small number of global additive suppliers and are formulated to coexist. Two API-SP oils blended together do not fight each other. Blend testing across the industry has shown standard licensed products mixing without adverse reaction, which is precisely why the standard permits topping up in the first place. While we're here, the viscosity index improver deserves a proper explanation, because it's the reason a multigrade oil exists at all. It's a polymer that stays coiled up tight when the oil is cold and uncoils as the oil heats up, taking up more space and resisting thinning. Think of it as a thickening agent that only switches on when hot. That's the trick that lets one oil act thin on a freezing morning and thick at operating temperature. Both your 0W-20 and your 5W-30 contain them. Mixing them just gives you an intermediate amount of that polymer, no conflict, nothing exotic. So no, your engine is not going to seize in the driveway. Anyone telling you a top-up destroys an engine is overselling it, and overselling it makes people ignore the parts that are actually true. Here's the part that costs people real money though, and it's not mechanical, it's paperwork. Mixing two oils does not void your warranty. Full stop. In the United States, the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act generally prevents a manufacturer from voiding a warranty wholesale over an aftermarket fluid or part unless they can show that item caused the failure. A warranty isn't a light switch. It doesn't flip off because you added a quart. But that's not the same as saying it can never matter. What can matter is a pattern. If an engine comes apart with a bearing or phaser failure and the service records and an oil analysis show the sump was routinely running a viscosity the manufacturer never specified, that becomes part of the denial argument. A single top-up on a road trip is essentially unarguable. 20,000 miles of deliberately running an off-spec blend, documented, is a different conversation with an adjuster. That distinction, one-time versus routine, is the whole answer. So let's put it into plain conditional terms. If you're on a road trip, a quart low, the temperature light of a low oil warning is on, and the only thing on the shelf is the other grade, then top up with what you can get. Running an engine a quart down is the bigger risk in my assessment, and it's not close. Low oil affects pressure, film formation, and heat rejection all at once. A slightly off-spec blend affects a calibration by a small margin. Take the lesser risk, drive on. And the arithmetic backs this up beautifully. Say your 5-quart sump has 4 quarts of 0W-20 left, and you add 1 quart of 5W-30. 4 times 8.6 is 34.4, plus 10.9 is 45.3. Divide by 5, 9.06 centistokes. That's still under the 9.3 ceiling for a 20 grade. Numerically, 1 quart barely moves you off the specification at all. If you're doing this as a routine strategy, buying whatever's cheapest, alternating grades, treating your sump as a blending vessel, then don't. Not because something dramatic happens, but because you've traded a tested, licensed, warranted fluid for an untested one in exchange for pocket change. If your engine has a hybrid system, oil pressure-driven start-stop, or a known history of cam phaser or timing correlation complaints, then be stricter. Get the right grade in there at the next opportunity. And consider an early oil change rather than riding the blend to the full interval. If you've already got a blend in the sump and you're worrying about it, then relax, drive normally, and change it at your next scheduled service with the specified grade. That's it, that's the fix. If you genuinely don't know which grade your engine takes, then this is the one physical thing I want you to do this week. Pop the hood, read the viscosity line printed right on your oil filler cap, because on most modern engines it's molded straight into the plastic. Then walk over to that jug sitting in your garage and read its label. Compare them. It takes 11 seconds, and I'd guess a meaningful number of you are about to be surprised. One more thing, and I mean this sincerely. This is general information, not a diagnosis of your specific car. Your owner's manual and a mechanic who's actually looked at your engine are the final word, every time. And if those two disagree with me, they win. So where does that leave the two men from the beginning? The service director is right that nothing bad happens today. The tribologist is right that you've created something nobody has tested. Neither of them is lying to you, and the truthful answer sits between them. Yes, safely, in a pinch, and no, not as a habit. Now, the obvious next question is the one I couldn't fit in here, and it's the bigger one. What actually happens if you don't just mix it once, but run the thicker grade deliberately for 100,000 miles? Because plenty of people do exactly that on purpose, convinced they're protecting an older engine, and the wear data on that is genuinely surprising in both directions. That's the next investigation, and it's already in progress. Subscribe so it lands in front of you when it drops, because I promise you the answer isn't the one you're expecting.